should stand up.
Okay, welcome to the Committee of the Whole. The date is Thursday, October 16th. The time is 6 p.m. With that, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Councillor Broughton.
Here.
Councillor McLaughlin, present. Councillor Cunliffe.
Online.
Present.
Online, okay.
And Councillor Abbott.
Okay.
I think he's in transit.
It's in an airplane. I think it's
Beautiful. Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
so moved.
Okay, second. Okay.
Second.
McLaughlin, second. All in favor?
Yep.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, public participation, no one in the gallery, anyone online like to, no one would like to speak? No?
Other than Councillor Cunliffe.
Okay, with that, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from October 9th, 2025. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Second to approve the minutes from October 9th, seconded by Councillor McLaughlin, moved by Councillor Broughton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yep.
Motion carried. Okay, unfinished business. We'll move right to the budget 2026. Capital operating supplementals and utilities. Mr. Cherkoff, I see you forwarded some emails this afternoon. We'll pass it over to you.
Great, thank you. So, would it be possible to get the agenda package on the screen, Crystal?
Yeah, that'll take me a minute.
Sure, I can talk through it
Okay.
to start.
Talk among yourselves.
Yeah. So we started off on October 9th, the kickoff meeting, and then agreement to the budget calendar. So here we are today.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Cherkoff. Yep.
Mayor Barry, I know it's a bit outside, but if Public Works Manager Burr joined us at the table, I'd be comfortable with that. I think his expertise is invaluable.
That's fine with me. Any problems? No?
Sounds good.
Okay, Mr. Burr, if you want to join us, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Sorry, Bob.
I was hoping to skip there.
Just out of the camera range.
Yeah. Let me turn the owl out there.
Yeah.
So what we have here are the overall budget goals in the process, days that we've agreed in the last meeting from our kickoff meeting. We've outlined meeting today, our next meeting with goals and objectives to get through. And we'll be documenting the decision log, council's decisions on where there are any discussion or modifications, additions, and how we go. But this will be our physical log of what we've decided in the room here. So today we're here to discuss the utilities budgets that have been forwarded to you. As Mayor Barry noted, I had sent a couple of supplementary forms, and I do have that in paper for councilors in attendance. And all that is the original budget that was presented in the last package, but I've added a year-to-date column for water, sewer, and wastewater, as well as a forecast amount for water, sewer, and wastewater, such that you have a kind of an idea of where we will land at the end as compared to budgets. So today we've been looking at the utilities budgets.
Yeah,
I'd like to get some movement on agreeing to a user fee increase. We'll discuss the capital budget, and we'll defer to Mr. Burr on any questions regarding specifics in that budget, additions, deletions. Discuss operating supplementals. I'll speak to that with some assistance from Mr. Blackwell. And looking to get some kind of consensus at the end of this on capital spend for 2026 and on the operating supplements that are in front of you. Basically, get some direction to kind of where we want to land, so that when I provide a revised budget based on comments from tonight.
Mr. Cherkoff, do you want to hold up for a second? We just, something you want to do there? Councilor McLaughlin
No, I
Sorry
think,
if I make
or
Counselor
Crystal? Anything?
Abbott is trying to join, but he's trying to join Teams and not Zoom. So I'm trying to send him emails and get him messages. Obviously, he's somewhere working.
my apologies to
But,
my colleagues. sent to
if we're
everyone.
gonna interrupt the meeting, just ask and we'll stop the meeting for a moment. and
Thank you, sir.
Otherwise, we're talking over each other. All right, back to you, Mr. Cherkoff.
Before you do you want to just mention the timeline for tonight, how long you want to spend?
We've got 2 hours tonight. I expect we can get through that with a good amount of discussion. I expect the way it was designed that to go through the utilities budgets, they're generally fairly straightforward, no real changes year after year. Provide an opportunity to discuss that. Mostly, I expect most of our time to be spent on the capital budget, on what we're looking to build infrastructure wise next year, and operating supplementals. Most of these are just one-time items, and some of them are recurring, but for the most part operating. So we'll be going, I expect most of our time we'll be discussing these 2 items with an eventual goal to have some direction as to how we're going to land on these items for our next meeting, which would be October 23rd.
If I may, through the chair, could you give me page numbers in the agenda? Please, Joe,
Oh,
as we go along.
It's on the whiteboard, on the board here. I'm not sure if you can see that. Unfortunately,
I think these are Joe's goals right now, Councillor Cunliffe, and, but that's a good suggestion. If we can get page numbers, that'll be much easier to follow along.
so what we have in your agenda package is which I'd like to get on screen, is the budgets for utilities, the capital budget and the operating budget supplies. So we'll have page numbers for those. This is just kind of just writing it out as we go. So unfortunately, I don't have.
Yeah, no worries. Just if we could, just so I know where we are at in the agenda.
Yeah.
Just to add, and you had mentioned last meeting that you might be able to run a spreadsheet so that we could see if someone's or the group is thinking about shaving back on a particular capital project, that we'll see how that's going to affect
The overall bottom
the
line.
overall bottom line.
Yeah, that's in progress. It's not as easy as I'd hoped.
Okay,
So
so that would be helpful, because I think we all want to be as cost conscious, but we also we won't be able to follow along what the exact outcome is at times.
if I may, so on the next meeting, part of that meeting is to review, the main focus of that meeting is to review the other departmental budgets, public works, admin, and what have you. So I'll have that along with the that Excel worksheet, and we can plug in and see kind of like where we land on those items for that one. That encompasses about 6 other departments. So for today, I didn't focus my time on the having that ready, because the utilities budgets are fairly straightforward. And then the capital budgets can mostly affect our reserve positions. So we do have that from your previous package, all of the reserve impacts from what is being presented today. And so if we just want to get some more information, discuss those items, I can update it for the next version, and then I can show you the impact on reserves and the black more.
All right, thank you.
Mary,
Yeah.
I mean, on the personnel side, when will there be an in-camera component for personnel costs?
Personnel costs will be, that could be scheduled for the October 23rd, because we're basically encompassing our discussion of utilities and then all of the operational departments.
Okay.
That would be the best time for that.
Thank you. It's a big number, so I think in-camera is the appropriate place there.
Oh, I have had some useful feedback from Mr. Berg on how to present that to get a little bit more clarity on
Thank you.
various parts. So we'll present that next meeting.
Good.
Yeah, spot on.
I get where you're going with the camera. I just don't think we can. If council wants to talk about staff cuts, at some point.
That wasn't my word.
No, but I'm saying if the conversation, I mean, it's one thing to sort of set out the information, around what the combination of cost elements are around staff wages. That should be an open. If council wants to look at reductions pertaining to staff, that should be closed. And you can move into closed for those discussions at any time and come back out again. Because it's a Sophie report, it's public.
I'm feeling really cautious, CAO Blackwell. I don't wanna fall into a pit that we don't wanna go to.
Indeed.
So thank you for your guidance. I'd be happy if at the next RCM, which is Tuesday, it's a little late for an agenda piece. But if there was 15 minutes on that, I mean, I know that's, council never has 15 minutes. But either that or the next meeting, I'd be fine with something along those lines. It's not about staff cuts, but clarification on compensation and matters I'm sorry, I've been trained not to talk about it. So I'll seek your guidance on that and leave it with you.
Well, here's what I'd suggest. I asked Joe today to make sure he sends out an email to all of council, breaking down what those Sophie numbers are about. Once you receive those, any member of council can, I encourage, in fact, to come and talk with me or pick up the phone or whatever, if any further clarification is required, or if it's just about accounting. Joe,
Okay, I'll follow your guidance.
does that sound reasonable approach?
I think you're substantially saying keep it open unless there's something that needs to be closed. That would be pretty obvious for all of us.
Correct.
Okay, fine, thank you.
All right, great.
So next meeting is when you would do the staff piece. Thank you very much.
So where we're at here. So we're looking to, when I start kicking this off, what I'm gonna do is, so we're here meeting to you October 16th, looking at the water budget, which includes a 5% increase in user fees similar to the last few years, and a projected surplus of $47,000. A wastewater budget, 5% increase, projected surplus of $111,000, and a solid waste budget, 5% increase, $51,000 surplus for solid waste. And these surpluses, it's effectively keeping the lights on budget with a little bit more to add in for future costs. We're just trying to address future infrastructure costs. Absolutely not, we do not want to be in a deficit position on this. And so this kind of reflects status quo, no cuts in service, no increases in service, and then a little bit of extra wiggle room and savings in those departmental surpluses for the future. So let's tackle this first. And if we can go to the water slide and discuss that operational budget. Is it possible? Yeah, that should be the page after this one. Water. Yeah, there we go.
Behind you, Joe.
Oh, yeah, no, that's easier to see.
Okay. We're on page 8, 9, 8 at this point, for Jamie's purposes. Or,
I'm doing the
Thank you.
handout.
okay,
So
we'll also look, which is the same as, similar to the handout.
yes, so the handout includes the preliminary amounts, and then the second one includes the forecasted amounts to December 31st. So on your budget to actual, I'm gonna go to the forecast one, because I think that probably just gives you a little better sense of what we're going on. So 2023 actuals were 841,000 and expenses 1.2 million here, primarily the factor of salaries and benefits. In 2025, the forecast bottom line expenses are going to be $1.188 million, slightly less than the pre-2024 actuals. And then first the budget of 1.190 is pretty much on track with what we figured we'd spend last year. And our 2006 budget comes out at 180, 163 here. We've got 1219 on that budget package. There was one item that was removed. That's good. it's pretty static. And we're projecting a slight surplus to add into the overall water surplus for future infrastructure. Currently it's projected at 5% increase in user fees. And that equates to a 1% increase in user fees is equated to $11,000, which works out to be about $18 per homeowner for the increase. Significant changes in budget. We've refined our amortization numbers, and the increase is with the expectation in 2026 that we'll have additional amortization for AZAP and CUP 3 projects that we expect to complete. We have a reduction in professional fees and contract services. Year to date for professional fees and contract services, we're expecting it to come in at about $45,000, so significantly under budget. That's kind of the main items that have changed. So are there any specific questions related to the water budget, years past or current year and future years?
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Berry. It's pretty perfunctory to me. Financial Officer Trickoff. I mean, really, you've got the 5% increase, which is just a number, generating 58 grand, ultimately yielding 48 grand in surplus. So, and the rest are just reductions. So I've really got no questions on this. I'm good with the page as it stands.
Okay, any other questions before we talk to Mr. Burke? No?
Can I just-
Over to you,
Okay.
Mr. Burke.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm unable to put hands up while I'm driving, and so sorry for just barging in.
No
I just have a quick question. Related to the water budget, and I unfortunately haven't got it in front of me because I can't open my laptop. But there was a kind of common theme. Well, the water budget, I think, is the one where it's most obvious, where we seem to have a 3% general increase. I know there's some big swings and roundabouts, but a 3% general increase in expenditure, but a 5% budget forecast increase for revenues. Was there some sort of conscious decision there, Joe?
Yeah,
Why did we?
There is a, thank you, Neville, that's a very astute observation. So the objective here is to, with respect to expenses, factor in basically just an inflationary amount. The projected increase of 5% is to generate a small amount of surplus such that we can save for future infrastructure costs.
So this is to fund an extra $100,000 in amortization.
In what?
Amortization. Because we'll have that much more capital in the ground.
Councilor Abbott, do you mind if we go over to Mr. Burr? He's got some comments and then maybe we can come back to you for some additional questions.
That's fine. I heard what he said, and I'm aware of the amortization. But yeah, I have one other question, but sure, carry on. Just come back to me.
Yeah, Mr. Burr?
Thanks. So, John, can I understand? If I read this right, we're raising 1.256 million in cash, in actual money, in fees and.
That's what we charge, yes.
Including amortization, which is usually not a cash item, we back that out. We are funding $335,000 in amortization with these fees. That's money we don't normally fund. We always back that out because it's non-cash. Here, we're not backing it up.
Well, this is presented in a way that it shows compliance with public sector accounting standards. This is what you'd see on the financial statements.
I'm aware of that, but it looks to me like we're actually funding $335 in cash.
Yes, and so
That's because we are. Yeah.
but that money does go into infrastructure, primarily water. So
it goes into reserves because we're laying out here what we're actually going to spend.
well, we are actually currently projecting to draw on reserves primarily based to public infrastructure projects on water.
For different things, the CapEx, sure, but this is OpEx.
But you're talking, if you want to back, we're talking like apples to oranges now, because you want to back out amortization, which is CapEx related. That CapEx is being spent on water, which contributes to drawing reserves.
Sure. But I'm just pointing out to council that we are actually raising, with these fees, $250,000 in reserve funding. That money is actually going into the bank and will be used to fund
Capital project.
capital projects.
Yes, yeah.
So the surplus, the $47,000 surplus, sure, but there's a lot more to it than that, and that explains why we are, I mean, it's pretty good. And I'll just point out, there's quite a lot of savings in here, from 25 to 26. This is not like, our other OpEx that we will be coming to in departmental budgets, where we back out amort. We're actually funding it in these three utilities. We're charging for amortization.
Yes, and I think that's better contained to a discussion in the reserve analysis, which will come up when we talk about, this will be on our October 23rd meeting. Oh no, that's the one after November 2nd, I believe. So what we're trying to achieve here is to look at these line by line items on OpEx. I understand your point about amortization and it being basically, yeah, just for everybody's edification, your amortization is a proxy for what's going to cost to replace in the future, stuff that's already in ground right now. So we record a charge under public company or public sector accounting standards to reflect the usage of that and get an idea of like what we may need to replace in the future. So what Carl is talking to is a funded reserve. And so that is definitely true. When you back up the non-cash items such as amortization, that amount is going on a non-cash basis into the reserve. That being said, we need this stuff coming towards either the middle or end of its service life, and so we need to save up money to replace it or fund other capital projects. But yes, so if we could contain that to our meeting, I believe it's November 2nd, when we review the revised departmental budgets and then discuss where we end up in reserves, I think that'd be a more useful conversation. Right now, if we could just concentrate on the line by line items, which I believe are fairly straightforward. Rob, do you have a question?
No,
Stretching.
Yeah, Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Barry. So, to Mr. Burr's point, I've watched the budget online for a couple of years, but I've usually not focused too much by this time. So if I'm looking at this, and to former Mayor Burr's point, we are actually paying the amortization on this. It is cash, no doubt about it. So, but it would appear that, and we tried to do this in 2025 in the forecast, and in 2024 as well. And in 2024, I mean, we had showed a deficit. But now, if I'm seeing this, and I've got no objection to what you're trying to do here. So this is the fully costed, fully ammed, the whole tilt boogie thing.
Yes.
Yes.
As I recall, in the past, we would do exactly this
And back,
and back out the amortization because we weren't intending to raise it. I don't know when this began. I'm all for it because it's $250,000 in reserves.
I think we're
There's the
on
infrastructure levy.
the same page here. It's just as to when it happened.
Yeah. We always used to back this out. Here, we're actually not backing it. We're taxing for it.
Well, it'd be accounted for, but then it'd be a subline, it'd be negative, so, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
But I'll just point, that's a good thing, by the way. We are actually raising significant funding. We're actually funding amortization, which is a calculated number. You know, you expect certain things to last 25 years, some things 45 years. We're actually funding it for our major utilities, which is good. Costs money.
So we're investing it, so we're investing it in.
I got, at the end of the day, Councilor Burton, we got 400 grand in the tilt
Yeah.
This year.
net.
And previous years, you can see the previous year's amortization amounts, that's also in reserves.
Yeah.
Ready to spend in cash. Now, some people might object to the fact that they will not be here when we spend this money that they paid, but that's philosophical. I think council wants to decide on.
Okay, Joe.
All right, so were there any further
Sorry,
questions?
sorry, guys, budget. I did say I had two questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second one is, and maybe we can speak to this in each section on each line item. The one place there seems to be significant, or there's two places, there seems to be significant swings between the actuals from 2025 or the forecast actuals and the budget from 2025 and then the budget from 2026 is on the maintenance line often and on the staffing cost line. Now the staffing cost line in the past we explained that we sort of adjusted how we allocated the various workshop staff costs. And so things kind of year on year never kind of quite lined up. And last year we were told that's done now. So they should all line up. The allocation, the bucket that it comes out of is always going to be the same. So I didn't have much time to go through that in too much detail, but I think I understand it. There's a bit of an anomaly where we changed last year, I think it was, when how we allocated the time. But the maintenance line item kind of puzzles me, especially in places where we're budgeting more than the actuals from the previous year, and sometimes less. And I know things like the gearbox and an exception, but each one of those where there's a big difference should have an exception. So I don't know if Joe or Carl can explain that, or if it just is a general underrun, then it is. But then we want to consider whether the budget should be coming down. And I'm not sure if it's that obvious on the water one, because unfortunately I haven't got the papers in front of me, but it does become obvious in those sheets we got, or I got just before I climbed on the plane 2.5 hours ago.
Yes, if I may, just to supplement that question to Joe, do these numbers that we see here, for example, the 114,025 budget for maintenance, that include the supplementals?
That included everything that was agreed upon.
So then I can answer that question, Councillor Abbott, and that is, there were some hefty supplementals in there for 25. So 25 was going to be a replacement of 8 isolation valves for $48,000, which we actually managed to buy for 24,000 in the end, and the gearbox for the wastewater treatment plant. So that's why you see that amount budgeted. Those were treated as supplementals for that year only. And so we can sort of go back to a more regular stream later.
Mr. Blackwell.
Just to Councillor Abbott's comment, it's sort of an assurance statement, and I want to be mindful of time here, otherwise Joe's not going to get through this in 2 hours. But take solace in the fact that that staff go through these budget items, and if staff feels there's room to safely reduce budget items, staff will be doing that. So I say that as an assurance. It's not likely, and it's possible that there's something that's overlooked or a mistake. It's not likely that staff are going to leave line items unduly excessive amount. If that makes sense. So it's been vetted.
Sounds like staff is still in discussion on it.
There's lots of moving pieces.
So if we could, and I will just reaffirm Councillor Abbott's question. Yes, we have a limit for, as far as labor cost swings from department to department related to public works. We have a limited pool of labor hours. We have about 6 people in public works. Some of them will work a little bit overtime or more, but eventually we've got basically a fixed amount of labor we can expend, and so how it gets allocated year to year depends on where Public Works decides to spend its time. So overall, and what I provide in our kind of full budget pages, I show the total labor budget versus the total budgeted labor across all departments for Public Works. Generally, it's really close. So that was very correct. That yes, it's going to swing just based on timesheets, but total amount, it can go very wonky. We have a very limited. Okay, so with respect to the water budget, can just kind of like a straw poll, are we generally all on side with the 5% increase?
I'm good.
Good. Yeah. Anybody online? Comments?
No. Good to me.
So I am gonna have on council decision tracker, water rate increase 5%. As you kind of look in, have more time to kind of look into the water budget and the following ones that we're gonna speak about. If you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to contact me in advance of our next committee of the whole meeting, and I can incorporate your comments into that presentation. But the goal is for the next meeting is that we review the revised utilities budgets and approve water, waste, and solid waste, so we can get that out of the way. So the next one we'll look at is the solid waste budget. This is a generally fairly consistent, very even budget. We have essentially the collection contract with Waste Control Services. We are under contract with them. The costs are generally the same every year, except for whatever increases they build into the contract. So you don't see a whole lot of increase in our budget. We're forecasted to have in 2025 a $56,000 or surplus, as opposed to an $18,000 surplus from the budget. It's really just going to fall on to if we have any additional charges from Waste Control Services in the last quarter with respect to recycling, collection, and green waste.
I'll also point out that the revenue that we derive from recycled BC is improving because of increased separation.
And that is true. I received correspondence from Recycle BC that we were, they applauded us for how well we have been doing with our separation. And it's reflected in what we forecasted to receive in money, $43,000 in 2025. And so the 2026 budget has been adjusted accordingly to be $45,000 for that revenue, that line item of revenue. So again, with solid waste, the request, our recommendation is a 5% increase in user fees. That works out to be about each percentage of the user fee increase is about $4 per home, so about $20 per home. I'll open it up to the floor, the gallery. Any questions?
Councilor Dawson?
Thank you very much. Why are we showing a surplus? This is a flow in, flow out. I mean, garbage cost X. We charge X. Our only asset in this is the mini plant, one down at the Burchard, correct? So our assets are nothing. I mean, this is, I mean, I'll grant the number is smallish, but and I see that there's been surpluses in prior years, which begs the question why there would be surpluses there too. Example being, if our technology costs for $100, why would we charge our residents $105?
Similar to the water discussion, we want to make sure that we're not operating at zero in respect to a departmental budget for utilities services. So we need to have some money.
I would suggest that there's more than a comfortable error here.
You know, well, if something goes wrong and you don't have any money to fix it, and it's immediate need, I believe that, in my opinion, that having a service.
I would suggest that looking at the previous years, that's simply not been the case.
Yeah, and this says we have well over $100,000 in garbage reserve, which we have no capital equipment involved, it's contractor only.
I believe Mr. Burr is echoing my point.
Right, so in this budget, the expense costs are, you know, effectively inflation based at 2%. Would you suggest reducing the surplus is coming from the revenue side? Would you suggest reducing the 5%?
The 5% raise is $11,600. Even that will leave still $40,000 surplus, which I question whether we even need that much. I could quite easily see having a decrease. Why? Because of improved efficiencies. It's not an accident that, you know, we're getting better revenue out of Recycle BC and our collection costs are going down because of consolidation. But we should perhaps consider passing that on.
I think Mr. Byrne, I've hit the point here. I think Mayor Barry, you should talk to our colleagues in this one.
It's open for discussion.
So-
Councillor Abbott or Councillor Cunliffe, what's your feeling?
I could go if you like.
Go
So
ahead, Neville, yeah.
I'll just remind everyone that the mini recycling depot was put in by saving the reserves on the BC recycling money that we got back. And you know, the Climate Action Committee were one of the drivers on that and deciding what to do with it. There is an element of that has to be spent on training, education today. So you're not training, education. It's a small amount. I think it was only like 5,000, so you couldn't give all of it back. You obligated to do that. My hope and desire was, if that proves itself to be successful, that we continue to leave that in some sort of a fund to develop further recycling streams and lines that can further improve or reduce our what we send to landfill. So my hope would be that that money could be used to further enhance environmental issues. While I'm talking, I do have one other question in the budget that I saw earlier on that line item. Last year, sorry, 2025, we budgeted, I think it was $11,000. That was for putting in the CCAN and everything that's there. This year, there was no plan for any additional CapEx, but we're budgeting another $10,000. Is that an expectation of us doing something else? Or am I misreading those two numbers that they were something completely different? I'm not sure why we would have anything budgeted on that line item this year.
Well, thank you, Neville, for that insight, and I do agree with you. I'd like to open up to the floor, especially Ms. Fur. Do we think, like, aside from labor costs with the weekend work?
Yeah, but that's within the salary and benefits line, although I see we have that down to 0. Yeah, you have to decide, we currently allocate the labor costs to green waste collection, wildlife attractant collection on Friday and Saturday. It's not a very large cost, but we don't have any numbers in there for the 26 budget, so maybe that would be the 10,300. The 10,300 could also cover this 5,000 a year education requirement that we have. I'll also say that I anticipate potentially seeing increased revenue from Recycle BC. They are very keen to now get a piece of the action with the community recycling center. There was previously an issue with how often they could pick up, and they expected us to store many hoppers of stuff that we just don't have the space for. But just been in discussion with them today, so we may even see an increase there. I could, all said and done, with all these expenditures, the contract stuff, the 64,000, the 65,000, the 83,000, that's set. Although we haven't seen an increase from waste control for 5 years, so even that's money now sitting in reserve. I could quite see not doing an increase, and still being well ahead of the game.
So maybe.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Broughton has his hand up, so go ahead, Councillor Broughton.
In light of we had a fire last Monday, and miraculously it did not catch the area around it. I think we're going to have a greater awareness of fire safe going forward. So I'm wondering whether the green waste collection costs for next year may increase on the strength of that. And in fact, we may want to encourage through Lions Bay Fire the work that they've been doing with fire safe and so on. I don't know how, seeing that house and seeing how there didn't seem to be much growth nearby the house. So, and which probably made the difference between it, spreading it into the entire area or not. So I think that we may be well advised just to leave this alone for this year at least, and in anticipation possibly of green waste increased costs there.
Okay, before I go to Mr. Blackwell, I just have a comment. This is more sort of structural or just meaning oriented. You had mentioned earlier we're going to have a discussion in our upcoming meeting on reserves and so on. I think it would be much more productive, given that the council has a limited amount of time, is that staff get together and banter around these different ideas that I'm hearing come out on the table here. And take a position, and then council then can utilize the time a little bit more effectively. Seeing a discussion amongst staff at the table here, in my mind, isn't very productive for our time, and it's also going to push us well over our limit. So in the coming meetings, I would suggest that staff get together, compare your notes, have those discussions well in advance. So that would be my request. Okay, Mr. Blackwell?
I think you just, so this notion of the rate increases for 5 years. So something I would ask one of you two is to look into the implications of that waste contract increasing. So in my experience with the CBRD, when the waste contract ended and we had to negotiate a new one, it was a huge increase. So
Dumping fees are way up.
because it was down in the States, so it was fuel and all these other things. So maybe I could ask you guys to look into that and do what you can to
We do need to
forecast.
do that, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, just so the council understands, we ride on the coattails of West Van. Waste Control collects there 4 days a week and 1 day a week here. And then they pick up what they missed in West Van on Friday afternoon. So we're kind of lucky in that respect. You know, we are really the tail that wags the dog. At some point, they will ask us to sign a new contract. It may be 26, I don't know. So yeah, it's a good one.
This also kind of falls in line with how we try to budget our labor cost increases with UCDAs. And we fix a certain amount, be it 3.5%, 2% each year based on inflation. However, that's basically trying to figure out in advance in our budget what we're gonna actually have to end up paying when the UCD comes in and we have to retropay. We did in 2024. So this is kind of a similar idea. We've got a fixed contract, but it's gonna come again, and they're gonna go back to their costs, which are generally driven by inflation at the minimum. So to Ross's point, it could be a lot higher. We're just trying to push the envelope here. Okay.
I know we want to move on. Just one last comment on that was actually too. I couldn't quite hear what Joe said, but I thought there was an inflationary increase every year that was built in, but you know, you guys can work that out. The other thing was, I just want to remind everyone, when we motivated for the community recycling depot, and let me start using the correct term, we, in that report that we submitted, we had allocated funds to pay the incremental increase in staff hours. Now, when council approved it, I don't know if they went into the granularity of exactly what they were approving or what that number was, because it was in flux. It was going to be union, non-union, and how it was going to work. But there was consensus that that additional money that came in could be used to supplement all the staff incremental costs. So you should factor that in, or maybe that is what that 10 grand's about. I don't know. Okay, last word on that.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Abbott.
I just have one quick question about the education piece. Is that $5,000 per year that we're expected to use for education?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. To Mayor Berry's point, I think you've heard certainly on this particular topic, 50 grand, whatever we're talking about, excess green waste or whatever. I find the number very high, no value to the community for it. It's just a surplus. From my perspective, I'd like to see that significantly reduced, and I'll let you move on.
Okay, well, I want to leave this meeting without some sort of direction on where you guys want to see this. So if there's some appetite around the room to have the 5% reduction decrease, which is again basically being paid by our increased fees from Recycle BC to the tune of like we're expecting an additional $18,000 over what was budgeted. So that would equate to the whole 5%.
$5,000 surplus.
You want to get to a $5,000 surplus?
Make it normal.
Yep.
There's no value add to the community. We're just, as I pointed out, our technology costs are $100 We're charging people 105.
Would anybody else like to weigh in on there? I'd like to get generate some consensus on where we want to land on this, so that I can deliver a revised budget for approval.
All right, I agree with Councilor McLaughlin. Just reduce that down. I would like to see it reduced down. The reserves discussion, that's another discussion we'll have. No point in just padding each of these different things and then having a discussion here at the table. I prefer that the staff has that discussion ahead of time, but bring that number down, in my opinion. Councilor Broughton, Councilor Cunliffe.
I would concur. If it's just money we're taking from taxpayers to sit in the bank and we're not using it to invest back into our infrastructure, it doesn't seem like a good use of other people's money.
Hey, Councilor Broughton.
Yeah, I think there's an awareness with the new recycling. I think we're getting some benefit there. Whether that sticks, I certainly hope it does. I do think that we'll have the green waste increases and so on. I'd be comfortable leaving this where it is, and in light of the fact that we don't know where the contract might be going and so on. So I would be comfortable just leaving it. It's not a huge amount of money. And the money is, we don't have all these silos really. I mean, if it's going into, it's being invested, getting a return on investment, it benefits the community all the way around.
Councilor Abbott.
Yeah, so I somewhat agree with what Michael Broughton was saying. I just want to remind everyone, had we not taken what used to be about $20,000 from BC recycling money and put it in a fund so we could use it for things like community recycling depot, you would not have a community recycling depot, and you would not be getting there up to $45,000 number. That money was invested in that program and it's paying back. I think we need to keep investing in it. There's other things we want to do with it. I don't know what they are. We'll go back to the committee and say, okay, what's the next step? And if you take away that funding for a saving, then we don't have anything to take to the next step, whether it's cleaning up mattresses or tires or something bigger, whatever we come up with. I'd like to see that money still kept in that for that use.
So, Councilor Abbott, may I just, for clarification, I'm just logging everybody's position on here going forward. Would you propose that we just keep it as it is at 5%?
I'm okay with the budget for the waste control services part being a net zero, but I'm concerned about this idea of using the additional BC recycling money for anything other than further sort of environmental green waste type programs.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would say that the $50,000 here, any way you cut it, is a 2.5% general tax increase to the population.
Okay, next item.
If I could, what council could do to move this on better than this is pass resolutions on this. These are only going to be recommendations to council.
Okay, we had a straw vote. It was 3-2. Do we need to go further? Do you want to spend more time on this, or?
For me, in my experience, it's always best to vote on these things. That way it's
It's a 3-2.
It's a 3-2, and how do you do that? And I guess COTW.
Let's move on. We're already 50 minutes into this.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to solid waste.
Sorry, just could I clarify, you're saying that it's a 2.5, no matter how you cut it, it's a 2.5% increase?
Mm-hmm.
On what basis?
Each percent's worth 15,000.
You would know this, Mr. Barton. I mean, our tax basis, $2 million in general taxes, 50,000 is 2.5%.
Well, but this is a tax utility.
No, but
It's the same, comes out of the same pocket.
Equating the number.
Okay, Mr. Chirkoff.
Crystal, can we move down to wastewater on the next page?
And what page would that be?
I can't see on your
Solid waste?
14.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
of your package.
Behind you.
Wastewater?
No, oh, yeah. Forgetting that one's season 6. So for wastewater, we're expecting, pretty much the same amount in revenues. A large part of that is the, parcel taxes that's fixed, for 10 years. So that's gonna be exactly the same. Utility fees and rates, it says 6.2% increase, it's gonna be 5%, there's something else in there that, wanting it up, it's a 5% increase recommended, similar to the other ones. And so this one does have again, a significant,
Different from the website.
surplus, we'd expect a $90,000 surplus in 2026. Based on this, again, the op costs are increased on a inflationary rate of 3%. However, there have been some specific reductions, particularly in the realm of salaries and benefits to align with previous years. That's the biggest swing contributing to the difference. And I'll open up the floor for any discussion here.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Barry, and thank you very much, Financial Officer Cherkoff. I don't live in Kelvin Grove. This is Kelvin Grove specific. +1 on this side of the creek. I'm looking at prior years and the surplus has been 20, 30 kind of K. This is now at $90,000. And I expect Councillor Cunliffe to speak up as our guidance in the area. I see the reduction in salaries and staff, and I mean, I'm gonna go with your number on this one. Bottom line, it's a $90,000 surplus, which for the 100 homes, around numbers in Kelvin Grove, we're charging them $1,000 each for a surplus.
A 1% increase in the user rate is about 900, but, or
I'm
10 bucks
going
per home.
201 minus 111. Your numbers are right below that. It's a 90 grand surplus. There's 100 properties in Kelvin Grove.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Let's call it $900. So we're asking our folks in Kelvin Grove to do a $900 surplus without asking them whether they want to prepay their future costs. So I'm not sure I'm quite ready to ask our Kelvin Grovites to do that just yet, or whether they want to straight line this. So I would seek some guidance from Councillor Cunliffe on her view of the neighborhood. I mean, I understand our capacity sitting at this table, but that's a pretty big surplus.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other councillors? Councillor Cunliffe.
I would say that, the need for a surplus for the wastewater treatment plant at this point is a little bit moot because we've upgraded for whatever period of time that will be. Any further upgrades will be on the back of anyone who's potentially planning any sort of extra development to, weigh in and use the sewer. We are paying a parcel tax of $10,000 each. It didn't sit well with the residents because I think lack of understanding of exactly what the sewer usage fee and the levy, well, prior to the levy, but what those funds were for, and it was not even close to what was needed to do any sort of upgrades, let alone replace the wastewater treatment plant. So I would imagine that if you left this alone for now until we have some sort of feasible development to address the wastewater treatment plant in its entirety, it would probably sit better with the Kelvin Grove residents.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, Alexander.
Yeah, and just something for consideration, and I don't want to step on Joe's toes here, but normally, in my experience, how this typically plays out is that you don't consider the significance of the surplus in the absence of your established reserve accounts. So you'll recall I sent out an example of a reserve policy that went out. That would establish thresholds for each reserve account, so you know that you're contributing enough each year. And on that, based on what you have in each reserve account, you would then be able to assess whether any given surplus needed to go in to be added to that reserve account or not. So we don't have that, which is sort of a double whammy with regard to this. So it's something that I think council should seriously consider, directing staff to develop a reserve policy.
Okay, any comments, other councilors or Mr. Burr?
Yeah,
Your hand up?
maybe I'll, in the absence of knowing what the current state of the wastewater reserve is, I know that we are facing in the near future a need to dig up quite a few sewer lines and reconnect them. There are 200 mil PVC compression fit, and the inspection showed that they were no longer connected. So we're going to be spending some money, maintenance money, not capital, soon. So in this instance, I wouldn't mind having a little bit extra. Forget it, it's $1,000 per property going into a reserve. We're going to be needing to fund some pretty significant maintenance soon, next 4 or 5 years.
Mr. Blackwell?
Thanks. Over to you and Joe. Further to your concern, maybe you two can talk about what's in reserve. You can forecast what you need, and then my suggestion is that council leave this alone for now, and we bring this back for council's consideration when you have those numbers to share. That sounds okay.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mayor Barry. If I can accelerate that conversation, I did leave office in 2022 at the time of the parcel tax, which stripped out all the reserves for the new plant. So allowing for 2022 is when we did the new plant. 2023, I'll just pick a number and say we did an extra 50 grand surplus. 24, 70 grand surplus, 25, 10K surplus. So let's generously say, for the sake of argument, it's 100 grand in their kitty. So this one adds another 90. Mayor Burr has already convinced me that something's happening here. Don't know what it is, but if there's trouble in River City, somebody's got to pay for it. And unfortunately, I think this is probably an education piece for our Kelvin Grove.
Let's just come back to you. Let Joe and me look at the reserves
Yeah.
to see where they stand. I don't have that number.
Pretty sure I'm close.
Yeah, I mean, this minus this, and so it's not a huge reserve.
All right, Joe, we'll move on.
Sorry, could I just
Yeah.
have one-
Councilor.
one comment on this? Yeah, I think Carl's correct here. We had a plant that was getting on for 35 or 40 years old, whatever it was. The rest of the infrastructure around it was of the same age. We bought another 20 years on the plant, and that big bill's still looming. But the rest of the infrastructure also needs to be stretched out to those 20 years. And you know, the residents don't need another surprise in 5 years' time when we tell them they have to pay for something in a lump sum. So I think you should keep this. There's a lot of aging infrastructure around that wastewater treatment. It's not just sort of filter tracer plants.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell said that staff would bring that back to council. So, yeah, Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I think this is, as Councilor Cunliffe has said, Mayor Barry, this is a touchy topic to 100 points. I think that somewhere in the village update, there needs to be a disclosure of things. The budget is too big, but if we're talking 100 homes is a significant number, and as Councilor Cunliffe says, they're a touchy group and they weren't happy last time, they'll be less happy this time. I think there needs to be some disclosure. I'll leave that to staff what they think that might be.
If I could suggest some key information on exactly the points that Carl was talking about, the infrastructure upgrades that may need to take place. As far as the residents of Kelvin Grove are, informed, our wastewater treatment plant, like you said, we've got another 20 years. I don't think that other part of the supporting infrastructure has been communicated well enough. So really front loading all of the residents as to why this money is going to be necessary, and in a time frame, not that, in 10 years we may, if we can look at in the next 2 to 3 years or 5 years or within the next 18 months, we may need to start doing upgrades, then we can justify why we're taxing for this.
Okay, I think there's been some great suggestions. Let's start with the staff bantering this around, coming back to council. I think Councilor McLaughlin made a good suggestion. Would be good to put some information out there to the public, but we'll wait for your return. Okay, next item, Joe.
We want to turn to, Crystal, if we can look at the next page for the capital request. There it is, right there. That's on page 16 of 18. So major projects underway, universal water metering grant is 100% grant funded. Hub 3, we have approval for the $1.3 million loan to fund that. And then we have a variety of other projects, one being the pH water adjustment, which was deferred last year, $200,000, but we would like to do that this year to address an immediate need for that. Those are kind of the main ones out of the projects for SCADA work. So I would, and then we do have a kind of a placeholder at the bottom, which we're still kind of wrapping our heads around, which is the Brown Hall edition placeholder. We can discuss that later. But if I wouldn't mind, Councilor Bird, Mr. Bird, if you wouldn't mind kind of walking us through some of the items that are on here and just identifying that you need to be added or deleted.
Yeah, just to be clear, just 5 points.
I think Ross is saying that I may get embroiled in the detail too easily. So I will try and keep it very high level. We have after Joe put these numbers together, I have better updated numbers, so we have actually spent more than you see here, but the numbers are all still pretty much on track. I'll just remind you on the second one, cover 3, this is a new water main from Alberta to the store. That was funded last year by council for this year's budget. That's well underway. You may have seen surveyors and people drilling holes and whatnot. We expect to break ground on that one relatively soon. So that's underway. You can see there that we don't need any extra money in 26 for that, for CapEx. HITEP, that's a highway tank alternatives project. That was used to fund ASAP last year, the Alberta project, plus a little bit extra. So we have quite a bit left in that funded budget as well, and we want to move it to future years. In other words, return it to reserves. Project SCORE, those on the infrastructure committee will know that I have asked the committee to recommend an additional $200,000 in the SCADA budget. We've had 340 funded. No, that's not right. 300 funded. I'm just looking through the math here. I need another 200. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. I was wondering why this wasn't working. We're going to need, this is not the right number anymore. I'm going to need an extra $55,000 for SCORE, that is to run power and data to the Harvey intake. And then we're done. We'll have a long laundry list of accomplishments that really have essentially modernized our SCADA infrastructure for the next 20 years. Moving to the next line, that's the one that if IC has seen, that's I'm asking for $200,000 for the so-called Project Alpha, alkalinity and pH adjustment. And that is, as the IC members know, we're a little behind on producing high quality, low acidity, low corrosivity water. And I'm hoping that that 200,000 will be enough. The engineers are looking at what the concept will be. So that's what that's all about. Yeah, the other ones are mostly design projects for what will soon be the few remaining original water mains in the village that need replacement. So I would be looking to, I wouldn't call them nominal because they're significant numbers, but design projects so that we can leapfrog what we've seen now with Cub. You may remember that I had thought that 1.3 might actually fund more than just Cub.3, which is about a third of the project. Turns out that's probably going to be the right number for Club.3 rather than being able to expand into others, unfortunately, because of huge material costs increases. Yeah, the rest of them, you start going down in numbers, I don't want to, they're all important. Some of them you will see that we're going to be asking for the 26 budget. And you can see the number there, $505,000. And the rest will either defer that spending to another year's budget or it's already funded. So the capital requirements, including some non-public works ones, will be $505,000 as presented here.
Okay, any comments, Councillor Barton, got your hand up?
Yeah, in terms of the pH adjustment, we're looking about 200,000 to actually put in the infrastructure. Do we have any kind of idea of what the operating cost year over year for that would be?
For which year?
For the pH adjustment.
Not insignificant.
Yes.
So, yeah. I figured we would use, around 50 kilograms of soda ash a day.
Yeah.
A bag of soda ash is $50, so that's $100 a day, just for raw materials. And then somebody has to, we won't be running we won't need an extra person, we won't be running extra overtime. We will make up solution once every 8 or 9 days. So it's going to be raw material costs of $100 a day.
Okay, so somewhere around $40,000 year over year. So, yeah. Okay.
I prefer 36,500.
36,500 based on your thumbnail. Okay, but what I'm a bit concerned about is that that's a year over year cost, and infrastructure committee looked very carefully for about 3 years at different possibilities for diversifying our water supply, and ultimately came up with either a water main to West Vancouver or wells. And I'm just wondering, and Tony Gravel was talking about the fact that if we do have well water, that there may be a potential to mix the well water with our more acidic water and end up, kind of deal with our pH issue there. And what I'm wondering is whether we're in a situation where we're looking at, in the event of a wildfire up in our watershed, if we did have wells, we'd still have a water supply. If we, and one of the arguments for the ASAP was if we had a fire in one watershed, we'd have multiple watersheds and so on. What I'm wondering is whether we should be deferring this 200,000 from this year and looking at the potential of well water and the impact of whether in fact Tony's right, and we may get a pH benefit there. So the thing with wells, we've got a whole bunch of positives as I see it. One, we may have more water during drought periods. We also may be wanting to use that water during the really high runoff periods, high rain periods, so that we don't need to be worrying about murky water and filtration and so on. So it looks to me like, at a high level, there's a whole bunch of potential benefits here, and we're also not undertaking year over year operating costs. The 200,000 is sort of the drop in the bucket to.
Well, well water
40,000.
will require major operating costs too, because you'll have to flock out manganese.
Yeah, but there are other impacts.
Sure, I mean,
So
that's a valid point. That would be up to the IC to revise that recommendation. The point is,
well, the IC does make recommendations.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm concerned on the year over year cost, looking at the big picture, looking at the other options here, and whether or not we should take just a little bit more time to understand what the other options are. I mean, as I said, we looked at multiple options in terms of diversifying our water, and with the well water as well, we may be looking at increasing the amount of water that we have available year round, which may also address some other concerns that we might have around people's anxiety around, you know, any kind of additional housing or any kind of development at all, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's
just
a supply
a whole
issue.
bunch of things.
So, yeah, I would still very much suggest that we need to spend this money, given the fact that the operating costs of, let's say, 36, let's call it $40,000,
Whatever.
is on top of a $1.2 million operating budget for water. You know, it's not a very large increase. The issue around well water potentially being used to adjust pH, that's true. We won't know that until we drill the test well. Production well is in the millions. It's a major capital cost because it has to be pumped in a pipeline at sufficient quantity to a treatment plant for flocking and disinfection. So what the point of Project Alpha is not only pH adjustment, but alkalinity adjustment. We have excessively corrosive water. And that has very serious public health implications because of the fact that our houses are 50 years old and a lot of them, if not all, have copper plumbing with lead solder. That is what I really think council needs to be very cognizant of. We are not delivering the best quality water that we should be.
So just to build on Councillor Broughton's comments, the well water, we've talked about that now for about 3 years. I don't see anything on here about studies, and the recommendation or discussion was to update the study on well waters. I would question the manganese. We don't know what that water is going to be until we test it. In the millions for drilling, I would also question that. We've had discussions with drillers. We've had, and Mr. Blackwell was there, discussion with drillers, discussion with the group that did the previous report. I think it would be wise to update that. I'd like to see something on here about updating that report. If we have a forest fire, our water could be contaminated throughout the watershed. Well water is one area that would protect that and supply some drinking water. But we won't know until we test it. We won't know until we update that previous report. And if we want some costs on drilling costs, you know, there's drillers out there that'll give us costs. We had those discussions. They're certainly not in the millions. They're much lower than that.
The test well is I don't know, let's call it $50,000. And it's potential that council would want to spend $50,000 on the test well to see what the water is. Because that would then inform pH adjustment, alkalinity, and future treatment. A production well is in the millions. It needs a 3-inch pipeline with a pump that needs power, 3-phase power. It needs rights of way. It needs roads.
Until you do the test well,
We have to do
until you do a report,
The
test
report's
well, you
underway.
do some costing, you won't know. If we have a forest fire and then we're required, we've been talking about this for 3 years and I don't see anything on here for expenditures on this capital expenditure. If we have a forest fire and it takes us 3 years to get the proper testing, permitting and so on, we're gonna be way behind. I can't imagine what would happen to our property values, quite frankly. I think this would be money well spent. I know there's been discussion even at the EBCM about portable units to clean up the water should we have that forest fire. But if we have access to well waters, and we're doing it in other areas in this province, and it's not a complete replacement, but it's an incremental. We're 3 years behind the curve right now. We could have been well on this path. Anyway, that's just my
Well,
feedback.
if I can just point out, the report that you mentioned that the IC directed me to get is underway. That's not a capital item. That's just coming out of the public works maintenance budget. We could potentially add $50,000 for a test well to see what kind of water we get and where.
Yeah, just Blackwell.
Just making sure that the direction from IC is coming to council. Because it's council that has to give direction to staff, not IC giving direction to staff.
Yeah.
So we're calling the same page. I was just gonna mention that there's 2 items on here that council could consider. It was both to deal with stairs. Here, $70,000. There's room to either not replace the stairs and save the money that Councilor Brown was referring to. In the alternative, there was this other unfunded item, which is the expansion to Brown Hall for ESS storage as well as file storage, because we really don't have any file storage. And so council could consider that it wouldn't be enough for that, but it would be a contribution.
Okay, Councilor Abbott?
Yeah, okay, I was hoping to comment on the wells as I charged in, on the other discussions I charged in the door. So yes, the IC committee spent a lot of time considering various water options, as has been explained. I think the recommendations of the committee were clear in the end. And they were agreed what they were. It was to do a further study on options for wells, and it was to do pH adjustment. I find it a little difficult that this committee of the whole, which has virtually everyone that sat in the infrastructure committee plus the technical members of the infrastructure committee, want to re-argue and litigate that now in this form. Yes, council get to make the decision later.
Okay.
But I think that was the recommendation that was clear, and that's what should be reflected in this budget, in my opinion.
Okay, I'll just reiterate what Mr. Blackwell said. It's not the tail wagging the dog. The council has to have a discussion, a debate. Decisions aren't made at an infrastructure committee and then put on the table and pushed through on this end. That the debate needs to happen at this table, and I do heed the advice of our CAO. So that's my feeling is we don't want to bake decisions at a committee level and then come to the council table and push those through. So we are voicing our opinions, and I think that's healthy. And my opinion is this has been 3 years under discussion, nothing has taken place, and so I think it's a discussion that needs to be had at the council table. Okay, Councilor Broughton, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at all of these different items. There's other items I want to discuss. And as you say, if there's nothing in capital for the well, I think we need to. I do believe we need to diversify. Looking on the Sea to Sky corridor, Squamish is completely on wells. I don't understand their well system. I'd like to know more about that. But what
The wells are all in creek levels, which is per now.
are in creek
Beds.
beds? Okay, yeah.
Totally different situation, Johnson.
Okay, well, as I said, I would like to understand that. I'd like to understand the difference. I'd like to understand where the water may be, how we might want to access it. Our mayor has some professional experience and has been bringing this forward for, as we said, 3 years. And I just think I would really see it as a reasonable idea to push this back until we have a better idea of what the well possibilities look like. And as I said, there's several other situations. I don't want to relitigate the IC discussion, and I would like to continue with that. I'd also like to point out that we're having a strategic planning session tomorrow night, and I think all of this it's bigger picture. And individual ideas that, we're talking about, adjusting for pH and so on. I think that that's a really important thing for us to do, but how we do it is how I would like to be talking, what I'd like to be talking about.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to Councilor Abbott.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out it's 7:20 already, and you spent a very long period of time litigating one topic.
Yep.
So my suggestion to you is you have an infrastructure committee. I would suggest you refer any questions to the infrastructure committee with specific direction and
For
council.
recommendations back to council.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Okay, Councilor Abbott.
What I was, maybe I didn't put it well earlier when I walked in the door. It's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. We have had an infrastructure meeting. We have a clear recommendation. It's coming to council. It's drafted. We're waiting for the minutes. It's already been done. It would have come to the next council meeting
and myself and Tony not been busy as we are, so it'll be at the one after that. It's already done. And that's coming around on this topic, and that's what I was suggesting. That's what we should be doing. I was actually supporting what you said, not.
And we're fitting it into a larger, pardon me, through the chair, and we're fitting it into a larger package. And we're looking at it as the council at the entirety of our budget, and the implications on the entirety of our budget. Okay, I think that was pretty clear. Could we talk about other items on here?
Okay, who would like to speak to the next item? Okay, Council Brown.
As mentioned, yeah, I was in discussion with the fire consultant today, and we've got the budgeted forklift backhoe item there. I'm just not sure whether we should move ahead with that in light of the fact that we are, is that where fire will want us to focus our funds?
Yeah.
So I'm just a bit leery about forging ahead on that one, and so I'm thinking that could be deferred.
Thank you. It's a great point. You gotta be careful not to put the cart before the horse. The only thing I would say is that fire has been talking about the issues that they have right now with the unsafe condition of the existing vehicle.
Yeah.
So even the worst case scenario, council decided yes, in order to facilitate that ability to move the vehicle safely, we're gonna continue as we have already discussed.
Yeah.
If it ended up being a pivot, the money's not lost. It can be redirected down the road.
Mr. Blackwell, you mentioned you were questioning replacing the stairs at the back of Municipal Hall. Could we have a little bit more explanation? Is that the stairs that are blocked off currently?
Yes. Yeah, so council has two options there. We can replace them for about that kind of cost in a concrete type of approach, like we've done with these steps here, or we cannot at all. There is no longer a need for fire egress for those stairs. There was before, because of reconfigs to the hall, we no longer actually need those. Does council want to spend $50,000 to replace them?
Mr. Blackwell.
So as I was saying, so those are rotted and gone, as you know. The ones at the front leading up to the main hall, they are also in need of repair, maybe not that amount. The point is, both of those stair elements combined give you the opportunity to do something different with it than stairs if council so chooses. And I referred to the hall extension earlier. I mentioned it a few times, and what that is, just to remind you, the idea is to put an extension in the back that's 2 stories high. It would be very simply storage. There'd be no windows, etc. One level would be for ESS storage, and the other level would be for file storage. Currently, file storage is accommodated in CCAN down at the Public Works area, which is far from ideal. So there's room for council to utilize those stair fronts differently, so choosing.
Just a quick question. I thought we were digitizing a lot of the storage papers and so on. Yeah.
I think, yes, there's a lot that has been digitized. Some of the hard copies we're required to keep by law in perpetuity. You can't destroy the hard copies. So there are those obligations. The ability to destroy certain documents after a period of time means that it's not an infinite amount of space. Digitizing helps as well for those items that don't have to be retained in perpetuity, but there's still part of those records that have to be retained in perpetuity.
Yeah, if I can just flesh that out. Property files must be maintained forever. We have them digitized for ease of access and character recognition. Financial records have to be retained for 7 years, after which they can be thrown away. We haven't, so there's definitely some work to be done there. And those are pretty much the records. Correspondence is almost all already electronic. It's not done paper anymore. So it's really property files. That is multiple rows of filing cabinets. not fireproof, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, we would benefit from some permanent storage.
Okay, Councillor Abbott?
Just to Michael's point on the fork truck, we do realize this is previously budgeted stuff, we already approved that, right, previous years, it's just a deferment, okay. As to the stairs, there's other thoughts and plans out the back there, and we don't need the stairs. I'll be happy that we didn't replace the stairs. Put up a barricade, or a fence, or a fence would look ugly, some sort of barricade. And decide what you want to do in the future, in those stairs, in my opinion. That's what I'm talking on. The other things on the list, I guess, the other, are we going to go through these one at a time? We should be bouncing around a little bit. Other opinions on the other sort of ones that were added a little late in the day, like the smart locks. We've got some comments on the hazard risk assessment. I'll just fire away.
Why don't you start at the top and go down, and then other councils can jump in.
I think that's a wise
Okay,
idea.
so
Thank you,
why don't we
Brenda.
go
I was-
right from
I was
universal water metering?
I was confused how we were gonna do this.
Yeah, because I think we are bouncing around, we're getting bogged down. So go ahead, Councillor Abbott, start at the top.
Okay, well,
Any
from my point of
comments?
view, I thought we'd done the first few. I'm certainly, I thought we'd done all the first. I thought we'd actually got to the stairs, to be honest. I didn't have anything above that because the fork truck was the last thing.
I think through Mayor Berry, we're kind of meandering around Nowhereville.
Okay. I have no other, up until the stairs, I have no other thoughts or comments. I'm happy with the budget the way it is. I'm very supportive of us going with the pH adjustment. That's a big one.
Okay, Councillor Broughton,
Okay,
sorry, Councillor McLaughlin, we'll go to you right after.
If Mr. Broughton's ready.
okay, okay, in terms of the forklift, I think that I would really like to support fire in light of the fact that the transition that they're in and not have them in limbo. So I certainly would, see leaving in that place. But I did want to ask the question in terms of, do they still want it, right? Or where are we? So I think it's just okay. And it is a safety situation, and if at some point they did not need it, it's an asset, and which.
Mr. Cherkoff has his hand up, maybe he's got a response for you. Go ahead.
To the chair, if I may, just recently corresponded and have been corresponding regularly with fire. They looked at two previous trucks and those fell through where they were either not to their needs or too pricey. They've identified a new one for this budget that they are looking to pursue. They're just looking for some of the forks to fit on the front of it. But it is a safety issue. It has no brakes the one they have right now.
It's no brakes on the current one. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Broughton, anything else
Okay.
before we move to Councillor McLaughlin?
Can I just run down the list
Yeah,
here, or
go ahead.
whatever, how do you want to proceed? Okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with not incurring a cost of huge cost for steroids, so that's fine. I'm just looking at the 35,000 for the replacement truck. The bylaw truck that was created, that was purchased. My understanding was that it was purchased on the basis that it could be easily swapped into public works as needed. And I'm wondering if the bylaw truck could in fact take that spot, replace the needed F-150, and picking up on Climate Action's concern about possibly having an electric vehicle. I'm wondering if this would be an opportunity where we set a policy as council to look at a relatively inexpensive electric vehicle, would not be doing high miles at all, could be 5 years old, 3, 4, 5 years old type of thing. And my understanding was there was maybe some potential for Climate Action funding towards that. Am I?
Actually, committee's recommendation on LG cap money was that some of that money we use to supplement the differential between an electric vehicle and a non-electric vehicle in a particular case.
Okay.
And put the infrastructure in required for charging at the workshop. That was their recommendation. And we have that money because we underspent on the furnace. So that money is in the bank, and that was their next recommendation between that and propane, which we haven't got on top of, and I need to understand.
Okay. Mr. Blackwell
So-
had his hand up, and then we're going to Councilor McLaughlin.
Craig, just do a supplement on.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell had his hand up
Go
to
ahead, sorry.
contribute to that point, and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So just a short answer on that. You can't use an electric vehicle for public works, and that's the whole idea. We cycle them in through bylaw and then through public works. So if council wants to proceed with an electric car, then when public works needs a vehicle, you have to buy a new vehicle. You can't keep moving them down. The idea of this is to have redundancy built in, not only when it comes to truck replacement, but also when the trucks go down and have to go in for repairs. Two of those trucks have taken quite a beating. Mr. Berkeley.
Can I just ask one question just to clarify? I understood it that there's a nice beautiful truck out there that's being used for bylaw, and Councillor Broughton, I think, is suggesting go to a smaller, possibly electric vehicle, give that pickup truck to the works yard, because personally, I see lots of the small little Chevys in West Van being driven around as bylaw. And I think it almost sounds like you're suggesting it's overkill for a big 4x4 pickup. Yeah, Councillor Broughton.
I do understand what you're saying in terms of succession of the trucks, but I do think would be really a good move to shift this truck over. That would give us a saving in this year. I think we could certainly justify the difference if, for example, we had a Kia, for example, gas model versus Kia electric, and looked at that if CAC could supplement if we were to be buying a gas vehicle, 2021 gas vehicle for $8,000 or a electric for 15, that the differential could come from those funds. We could set up the charging, and we also would have a very, I think it would be a very positive climate message to the rest of the community, rather than I mean, I know when the 4x4 truck showed up as the bylaw truck, people were saying, you know, and again, it's an education thing, it's an informational thing. But I think we could I think there could be a lot of benefit from going with the electric.
Okay, we've got Councillor McLaughlin had his hand up, then we'll go to Councillor Abbott. And I'm not sure whether you're finished or not, Councillor Broughton, but a nice pause over to Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Perry. I do have my eye on the clock. I'm looking at this, and I mean, we've got a lot of projects in hand, a lot of them funded, a lot of them taxed for, but not completed. So if I look at the wish list here, it's basically $1.7 million coming from our reserves. That's a very choking number for me, because it takes a big piece out of it. So I would suggest that I mean, even as Councillor Broughton says, the fire truck or the forklift, we've already taxed for it. The money's in the till. So, you know, are we going to renege on them? I don't know. Are we going to redeploy? Are we going to tell them? I don't know. But let's use that as a starting point. I think everything above that mark, if staff could recompile their wish list, you know, where it is, I don't know. I'm going to leave it with them. I don't want to, you know, do the baby in the bathwater thing here. Everything below that seems a much smaller number. I just draw an X through the bunch. But my point being, I think if you're going to ask for staff is going to ask for big bucks. Staff is us too. I think the priorities need to be really clear, because if we're drawing from reserves, it has to be for sure everybody on council agreeing with the project. Thanks.
Councillor Abbott, you had your hand up.
Yeah, comment on the truck. So yeah, I think it'd be a positive idea to have a smaller electric vehicle from Bile to drive around in. I was against the truck in the first place. Others thought we needed a presence in a big vehicle, which I never thought was right. And this idea, there was another thought that it would be used as a backup vehicle for the workshop. It wasn't meant to really get all the way down to the workshop. If we want to go away from all of those thoughts, I'm very happy with that. And you know, to turn that into a workshop vehicle and get a small electric vehicle. It'd be great, and as I said, the infrastructure committee have agreed to pay the delta. But then the question is, where's it going to be parked? It's probably still going to need to be parked at the workshop, in which case we're still going to pay for workshop infrastructure. So the next electric vehicle can be a workshop vehicle. I'm not sure, Ross, why you said workshop can't use an electric vehicle.
Car.
Electric car, okay, they can use an electric one, F-150. So I think that's progressing in both directions. We get the right size vehicle for here. We can still spend that the LG cap money or part of it on infrastructure, so the workshops now future-proofed for being able to get the electric vehicle if that's the choice in the next vehicle.
Mr. Blackwell.
I gotta say, with respect to council, these are operational and you need to sort of leave in terms of what equipment staff needs. You don't know. You gotta leave these decisions to staff. If council wants to make a resolution that you want to electrify the fleet, that's a policy decision that you can make. But in terms of telling staff what vehicles they need and what ones they don't, it's very problematic. You don't know. You're not involved in the day-to-day, you don't know. And so you're complicating our lives by sort of, if council were to pass these sorts of resolutions without immersing yourselves in the operations, it's too problematic. The other piece I wanted to point out is that all hazard assessment that Councilor Abbott was raising, that number's not correct. I think Joe has heard me when I said that. I recommended $250,000 for that. The reality to do that, it's more like $500,000. So that's even at 250, it's a bit of a placeholder and it's a big mystery as to what that cost would ultimately be. Because ideally, we would be able to negotiate something with the province to either take on all of that cost or the lion's share of that cost, given that most of the hazards originate in Crown Land area. So what does that 250,000 represent? I don't really know, to be honest. I'll be on what I've shared with you.
So are those discussions that are ongoing now?
No discussions happening right now.
Just throwing it out there, wouldn't early discussions close to the Canny Creek incident give us more leverage as opposed to waiting longer?
Yes, it's a function of just capacity for one thing. And secondly, direction from council. What do you want to do? Ultimately, so you have your strategic priority session coming up. And this could be one of the emergent issues you want to consider.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Councillor Abbott and then Councillor Broughton.
Here's my suggestion. We should just park this discussion until we have a better idea on the budget. And hopefully on the budget costs for that item is what I mean. And hopefully that can happen fairly quickly through this report and in time to get into the budget cycle, or it's a supplemental budget cycle right at the last minute before we go award next year.
And you can always amend the budget down the road if you ever.
We can amend it before we set the tax rate.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
Okay, I'll just be brief, but I'm struggling a bit with policy versus operations discussion because we had bylaw people driving around writing up mileage in personal cars. And then in order to offset that, so we looked at that budget and council said, okay, let's buy a vehicle. So that was a policy decision to buy a vehicle, presumably. And so now we're saying we want to go electrify some small piece of the operation and have the presence, have the climate action, and so on. So I guess I see that as a policy decision that's certainly realistic and reasonable. So.
Just Blackwell.
Yeah, so it's a fair point. So if council was inclined to choose to electrify the fleet, my recommendation would be that it would be an electric F-150, not an electric car. Because by buying an electric car, what you're doing is saying, that's only for bylaw enforcement and that's all. Nobody else gets to use it. And to me, that's not a good use of, we have a very limited number of truck resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need redundancy. So when one of those existing 150s goes into the shop for 2 to 3 weeks, which has been the case, I can't say to the bylaw officer, can you give him a car to use? We need truck redundancy, we don't need a dedicated car. If we were Burnaby, it wouldn't matter, there's so much redundancy built in. So it's about protecting against those scenarios when we have vehicles out of the mix. We need, so if it was an electric, a goal, then it should be a F-150 electric, but that's expensive.
Councilor McLaughlin. and then
Thank you.
Councilor Abbott.
For 20 seconds, Mayor Barry, we need to get going here. I'm new to the council. My personal view as a private citizen is that that truck mark bylaw is an abusive position. It just gleams every time it's sitting there, let alone when a resident gets a ticket for parking at the beach for 15 minutes. Not a good image, but that's a decision that council made. It's a 150. Give it to Workshard and have the people that are bylaw officers use their personal vehicles like everybody in the industry does. Solved your problem.
Councilor Abbott, and your hand up.
Yeah, I wasn't sure we were going to get back on that decision. That before I was going to point out that the Climate Action Committee has already recommended that we could go electrification. And I think we also discussed that even if it was written that clearly into the procurement policy. So I think that the Council of Climate Action completely surprised that there was another gas vehicle around, let alone F-150 for bylaw. So I think that decision wasn't already made. But I guess we can move on and let staff decide how they, given all of that, how they want to deal with this issue, what vehicle they want to buy for when, but.
Mr. Blackwell, here's a question. Do you want staff to go back? I think everyone agrees that if you go back, make that call, or do you want a resolution saying that we prefer a smaller vehicle for bylaw, and then obviously the bigger truck goes to the work share?
So in terms of the type of vehicles operations needs, it's an operational decision. If council wants to, as they say, look at electrifying the fleet, that's a policy decision. That'd be great to have that as a formal decision. And which would mean then the logical vehicle, whatever the right time was, would be an electric pickup truck. We need pickup trucks. We don't need cars. Like, cars are a waste of taxpayers' money. We need pickup trucks. That's what we use here. So, I've said it multiple times. I'll say it again. The trucks we have are old in terms of wear and tear. They go into the shop for extended periods of time. And if we have a car that's dedicated to one job only, I can't give Carl a Kia to the public works staff to go up to the intake, or to do any other. They can't put a plow on the front of a Kia or a Salting, et cetera, et cetera. So we need redundancy in the pickup truck end. We don't need dedicated car from an operational perspective.
Okay, Councilor McLaughlin.
Sorry, Mayor Barry. State of Blackwell, I think you're missing the whole point. We're not asking you to electrify the fleet. Your request is for a truck. We've given you the answer. And not only have we given you the answer, Mayor Barry has said you want a resolution on the answer.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I think just not even taking a straw vote, but I think all of us are in agreement that having a 4x4 truck bylaw driving around is not a great appearance and probably overkill. We have climate action that has some funds available, and we're not saying take away from public works, but we're saying keep the 4x4s in public works and the bylaws smaller, possibly electric, and that'd be a great idea. But so I think you've heard council. Okay, any other items on this list that other councilors would like to put forward for discussion at this moment? Jamie, anything that you would like to discuss on this list? Okay, you might be on mute, but it doesn't seem like Councilor Cunliffe has anything.
Sorry, I was having a hard time coming off of mute there. I concur about the appearance of the bylaw truck. I've had many comments from residents questioning why it's parked out front of the village hall and not being utilized. Well, one of our bylaw or parking agents was driving around in a personal vehicle. So it does seem like it would be better utilized in public works. My question is for the backhoe, I understand that's a safety issue. How often and frequently is the fire department actually moving around this car? And is there not somebody locally that could bring in a backhoe to do that on a case-by-case basis? Do we really need to own our own? Other than if it's going to be utilized by public works as well? I don't know, but just a couple of thoughts on that, so.
I think we're discussing a forklift, but
It's either or.
point
They
Well,
said they could use either or.
either or, yeah.
We did try have a workshop, use it, do it for them, didn't work, right?
Yeah, we did ask, and I must say, I can't actually remember the response. I mean, obviously, the backhoe that we have is a highway vehicle. It's 20 minutes out of our day to go move a vehicle around. I mean, council needs to decide, do you want to provide the fire department $41,000 backhoe so they can arrange a vehicle for training purposes? Or do you order public works to do it? Which is, as I say, as long as it's not not after 3 o'clock, we can do it.
So we asked that the public works do it, that was the recommendation. And then didn't happen, and then there was something, you came back to us, June, yourself and Barrett, and said, it didn't work for whatever reason, it couldn't work, or it didn't do it.
I don't remember the.
Maybe it just didn't try hard enough, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that discussion, but I must admit, I don't remember why it didn't work. I think it may have been fire found it difficult. Something to do with where it was being parked, maybe, I don't know.
Trainings in the evenings.
Yeah, I mean, we could go and set the thing up as long as we knew where it was supposed to be, if it was before 3 o'clock, regular hours. If I could just add, Chair, one more thing, does council want to add $50,000 for a test well to the list for consideration?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, for a $50,000 for
For
what? I didn't quite hear that. If you could repeat that. Apologies for interrupting.
Was to go investigate the costs, update a report, decide what to do next.
So the report is underway. Okay. Using just.
So the report
existing
will,
budget.
and the report's gonna tell us whether it makes sense to go drill a test well and when. And until we know
Yeah,
that.
good point.
So
So
therefore,
until we know that, let's do the first step we all agreed to.
okay, and have the funds in hand to carry it out.
Put it as a place mark.
Put it in as a place marker, yeah. Okay,
It'd be
I would
fine.
ask,
Find
yeah,
a
let's
place
add the
mark.
50.
All right, I would game on putting a place marker there.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes roughly. I would suggest that all the counselors take another look at this on their own time and maybe make some notes and scan a copy and send it off to Joe or Carl or the staff.
Yeah, so we have one more table to look at. Which
Yes,
is-
definitely. We're gonna go to the next table. Yeah, Councilor McLaughlin and
Mayor Barry, this forklift has already been taxed for. I would, between works yard and fire department, let them duke it out. I don't even see why we're seeing it here,
yeah, I agree.
unless they're giving the money back.
Agreed.
What decision do you need?
So I would just, before we move on, so there's been a lot of discussion back and forth here. Definitely a request for some clarification and prioritization. So we are fair in saying that council's decision is to defer any decision on CapEx until at the next meeting. Instead of approving it at the next meeting, it'd be up for discussion again.
I would say it's, staff's gonna come back with some information, but also I think council may have some other suggestions that they could send to you as a sidebar. And then further discussion, perhaps we can land on it the next meeting.
All right.
Would be my hope, but any other comments from the councilors? Yeah, Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Barry. I think, as I said, just draw the line of what we've got funded, what we've got in hand, what's partially funded. It's a pretty big list. A bunch of the other stuff is quite small. To throw 50 grand around like a nickel, sounds grandiose. I don't want to sound that way. But if you cut this list in half and say the bottom half doesn't make it, the top half is where big bucks are, staff should figure out what's really important to them and look at what the new money ask is and come to council well prepared.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, Joe.
Last item for tonight on the agenda was
We
the,
have 10 minutes, so
it's gonna be quick. We got operating cost supplementals. Now. Yeah, there we go. So vegetation management, trees, this was in line with last year, 50 grand. The MAC taking access was taxed for last year, sitting in the kitty right now, so we're gonna do that this year. Summer tires, again, previously taxed, unspent, so we're gonna spend that and addressing maintenance issues with our aging fleet. What would be current for the current year is an additional $24,000 to repair our public works fleet. There are some significant items that need to be remediated. The new technician has been deferred, that took out a new FTE. Mr. Bird's opinion that we don't need it for this year, so we can wait on that.
Can I just interject and just ask while we're on that? We currently budget for that person, so are you saying that you're gonna remove that cost?
What's budgeted is for each single person, so I budget by, we only got like 6 people, so every person's on the line there, so I did a new one for a new tech unnamed.
Yeah, well, we already have, so
No is the answer. It's not budgeted.
well,
I
we have
modified,
5 techs, not 6.
I modified 2026 to include, like, not the nebulous one, I had a specific line item for this new person, because we interviewed.
Okay, fine. Okay, so previously, I'll just remind council that we budgeted for and funded a 6th person that we never actually filled that position for 3 years. This will be huge. So, we need to be careful.
Then there's a few new requests from admin. So looking at planning work, to $300,000 and this black.
Sorry, Joe, those numbers got jumbled up. It's $300,000 for everything. Not see broken out that $300,000 with the 2 line items below.
Oh,
And then some. So planning work is comprised of OCP update and bylaw updates, roughly 5, possibly 6. So, so an amount of roughly $300,000 to do those 5 to 6 bylaws plus an OCP update.
so yeah, there you go. You got your breakdown right there, the 70 and the 175. If you want to take 2 minutes, Ross, just to explain that to council, that'd be great.
sorry, can you explain that again?
So
Focus on something else. Is the 300,000 is what?
is comprised of roughly 5 to 6 bylaw rewrites of existing bylaws. That's what that would buy you. There are more bylaws that need to be rewritten, but those are the most urgent.
Can I just ask, sorry, that seems extremely high. From Don Lidstone mentioned that they were actually had juniors doing that work and that it was going to be a knockoff of what they had. This was at the LGMA and his discussion, it sounded like it was gonna be, I think he might have even thrown out 125 or something. This was primarily juniors, that they had a template for it and we fit right into that mold. 300 sounds way different than that explanation.
300 isn't just for bylaws. So Don would have no idea how many bylaws for him to be able to throw out $100,000. But based on the fact I used to write bylaws for a living, I would tell you if you can get a $35,000 bylaw, like a zoning bylaw, that is, you won the lottery. A zoning bylaw rewrite, it takes a lot of work. That would be about, for this size community, about at least a $50,000 ask. So,
Sorry to cut in one more time. He was gonna provide us with and he was talking a complete rewrite of all ours. And he was gonna provide us with some sort of a cost of some sort. Has he done that yet, or?
no, I haven't identified all of the bylaws to him. We've got to figure out whether or not there's a budget to do it. So where I was going with this is even with junior folks, they have to work with senior folks. And you folks, this stuff isn't entirely boilerplate, they have to be customized. An example of the boilerplate is council's presentation by Ralph Hildebrand. Building bylaw, that was an off-the-shelf, a small town boilerplate bylaw prepared by Lidstone, but as you could perceive through that presentation, there's a tremendous amount of work that went into that. So that number of $35,000 for a bylaw update, it's a guesstimate, it's an average of a relatively inexpensive bylaw rewrite. An OCP update, it would be about $70,000, roughly speaking. Could you get it cheaper? Possibly. But for earmarking an amount, it would be roughly that. The OCP is quite old and it does need to be updated. So if you were to look at a safe number that would encapsulate all the most pressing bylaw rewrites plus an OCP rewrite, that amount is in the ballpark of about $300,000.
Okay, Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you very much, Mayor Perry. Two things. Number one, I know we're running out of time. My overarching recommendation is that I appreciate Financial Officer Cherkoff's timetable, but the last table and this table are clearly going to take some work. And I think it's probably where council's going to have to roll their shirt sleeves up and really work with staff on this. The numbers are big, the consequences are large. My recommendation would be that Mr. Cherkoff's next meeting deals with these 2 pages. That's my first thought. The second one that bothers me is, thank you, Mr. Burr. I didn't think this occurred, but on the new technician piece, if I've got this right, we've taxed our residents for 3 consecutive years, $80,000 with no employee in place. That sounds like $240,000 in overtaxing now. And now I was on the list, but it's now been taken off. So in my view, we owe the community an employee. Or something, so I'd like to talk about that. As for the big ones here, planning work, OCP bylaw, I'll accept whatever the fire chief thing might be. But I mean, these are really big numbers. And I don't think we can rush through them. Thank you very much, Mayor Barry.
Okay, any other councillors wish to comment?
Yeah,
Yeah, Councillor Abbott.
I'm puzzled by this technician that we had in our budget previously. If we had in our budget previously, why wouldn't the actuals been out of whack each year?
Oh, they've been usually on your budget.
Okay, I knew we didn't have the person, I knew we had 6 people previously, and only had 5, but I didn't realize we had.
I didn't know we were charging. For
Okay, I didn't know you that either. I missed that, my bad. 2 things. Summer tires, winter tires, vehicle maintenance. I think these should be maintenance costs. I really don't think they should be in supplementals. Did that last year when we spoke about tires, there was something else last year we removed from this. I would much rather we need to maintain the vehicles, and if that's what it takes to maintain the vehicles, it should be in the maintenance line. And the maintenance and all these things seem to be running low anyway, so I think we should just relook if that's in the right place.
If I can just interject there, I mean, these are supposed to be extraordinary costs, non-annual costs. So, tires will last 3 years, that's why they're not in an annual maintenance number. The idea behind the annual budget is that should be about the same every year. So these, I fully get where you're coming from, but the idea is that these are multi-year spends.
Multi-years.
Yeah, you do 1/3 of the vehicles every year for tires or whatever, just sequence it out, work it out. I don't think we should be discussing this stuff. It should be in the maintenance cost. We shouldn't need to discuss it. Cars need tires, at the end of the story. On the other item that's just come up now, this whole planning, $300,000 for planning. I would certainly like to understand which bylaws we want to update, and be sure that we need to update them. If we're going to be spending that kind of money updating these bylaws, that's a lot of money. And I question whether we should be doing an OCP update next year. And unfortunately, I remember the same discussion 4 years ago. But OCP update should be done in the first year of a council, or first, second, third, not coming into, not, actually, they happened, at the end of your term was 2018, was a decision not to do the OCP
So
review because
he
it was in the
passed.
last year.
He passed on the update, I did too.
Yes, and then we passed another one, was in the last year. Here we are in the last year and trying to do an OCP update.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, comment,
Just on that,
Interject.
OCPs have got nothing to do with council terms. And they shouldn't have anything to do with council terms. They are supposed to be 20-year forecasts.
I understand that.
And OCP should be updated most every 10 years.
Sorry, let me just clarify. I understand all of that. Okay, the question was, we're doing OCP in a year where you're about to have an election, leading up to an election. It's just a bad time to do an OCP update. For all the electioneering and stuff that goes around it, instead of focusing on the villages. needs.
Mr. Blackwell.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Even if council decided to go ahead with the OCP rewrite, logistically it wouldn't happen in 2026. If we start certain aspects, when we start in 2026, for instance, public conversations and open houses, get conversations going, but the actual meat and potatoes would not likely start in 2026. So my suggestion to council is don't get too wedded to the year. Just decide whether or not you want to update your OCP.
Council Broden, and your hand up.
Just on the new technician, I'm just concerned, how are the existing staff are doing in terms of, are we having to pick up a fair bit of overtime with that? Are they burning out on the basis that? I just need to, understand the implications, I guess, of that.
Thanks for asking, through the chair, so, they're not burning out. I keep a very close eye on this. I've been in discussion with our supervisor in Union Rep on exactly that. We've actually written the spec for a new person. We're a high functioning team and we're not spending extra money on overtime. There's no extra, very little overtime. Where you see the money being spent is on standby, but that would be the case anyway. On the other hand, I'm conscious that, we're heading into transition for two of our senior staff members. I want to get somebody on. So, this is the first that I saw that this was to be deferred. I agree that we've funded it for 3 years and haven't filled it. We are significantly under budget on staff costs in the public works department for that reason. Plus also extremely tight handling of expenses. Thank you. You're welcome.
Very much. I'm supposed to ask the question.
But this is news to me that we would cut this person. I was glad of the fact that we were continuing to fund it so that we had the latitude to recruit that person when we need it. I believe we actually need that person at 26. That would be up to my successor to fulfill, of course.
And the right person.
And the right person, so
I'm very sensitive to the fact that you've got a high functioning team that are working well together and it ain't broke.
I don't want to mess that up. The dynamic's excellent. We're getting a definite 1 + 1 = 3 situation there. And we want to maintain it. This is more a succession plan, I think.
Okay, I'll come to you right after. I just wanted to comment on one of the previous comments, the OCP update. I understand and hearing you that we're not likely to land on a final revisions or an update on that OCP. I think it would be well served the community to actually have some meetings on this, hear from the new residents, especially because our residents have turned over the last 5, 10, 15 years. And it never hurts to hear from the residents. And in terms of an upcoming election, if you do hear from the residents, there's going to be probably lots of different areas that candidates can potentially get behind or not get behind. So I would see that as positive. I think it's always good to hear from the residents. My 2 cents. Over to Councillor Abbott.
Just one last comment on the additional technician. One of the other things we spoke about when we were motivating for this extra technology and SCADA and so on was it's going to reduce overtime costs, potentially reduce standby costs, or can reduce standby costs, I guess. And it was one of the things we spoke about. We get all this, we spend $250,000, a bit more than that, I think, to get all this stuff in place, and that was one of the motivations for us. I think we'd also like to understand that strategy is working. And if so, then, you know, do we need a full extra person? I understand you've got a union issue. You know, there was just one point on there. Back to the OCP review, the idea is to start paving the way for an OCP review. I'd like to understand what that looks like, but to try to push one through by next year.
Yeah, Mr. Blackwell.
So a lot of the work I've done in the past is OCP reviews, and what I can tell you is there's not really one size fits all, as you can appreciate. Each community wants to have different processes. Based on my read of this community, what would make a lot of sense is not to proceed in a process to suddenly starting to rewrite an OCP. I think there's a lot of discussion in this community that needs to happen around all of the key themes around mobility and development permits and hazard management, all of these sorts of inputs. And I could see that with summer holidays and all the various competing interests, I could see those conversations taking anywhere between a minimum of 8 months. In one community, it was 12 months before we even started sitting down to write the sections. That first 12 months was about the monthly conversations with the community about all these key areas. So the actual writing piece, I would see happening in 2027. And would probably start in sort of the February mark of 2027. And you would probably have a first draft by September of 2027. 2026 would be ground truthing of the thoughts and ideas.
Okay,
If I could,
we'll go around the table once and then we'll ask Mr. Cherkoff for any final comments and then I'll call for.
if I could just weigh in on a couple points here. The $300,000 for the planning work, I definitely would like to see a little bit more breakdown on what that means. The 5 bylaws at $35,000 each, I do concur with Mayor Barry that Lidstone did offer up some sort of reduced rate. I would like to see which bylaws are being prioritized by staff and see if they're in alignment with council and the residents. When it comes to the OCP review, obviously going out to the community and hear what they have to say is good practice. And I would like to see that kind of in a soft start, in a sense of have your say. We seem to have a lot more buy-in that way than a town hall. I recall as a fairly new resident, maybe only been here a few years, OCP town hall that was actually being hosted at the Glen Eagles community, or not community center, at the golf course, because our hall was under renovations. And it was one of the most dysfunctional public hearings I have ever experienced in my life. So I would not want to see a repeat of that. I think if we go with a have your say to really gauge the pulse of the community and the issues that are there actually at the forefront of their minds before we go into any sort of public forum, would definitely be the best course of action from my experience and perspective. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, gentlemen.
We're going to continue around the table, but Mr. Blackwell had his hand up. Quick comment.
Yeah, thank you. Through to you, to Councillor Cunliffe. I'm not suggesting town halls per se. I think one of the tools I've used in the past is a speaker series where you bring in speakers, folks like Patrick Condon from UBC, who's a landscape architect, deals with, anyway, it doesn't matter, bringing in subject matter experts on various topics to lead conversations. Other techniques, so that's sort of priming the conversation, and then as the process moves forward, you move into sort of cafe style workshops where you workshop with community members various topics. And these are focus group topics where you may have, you know, whatever, 20 to 30 residents broken into groups and round tables, and you have these kitchen table sorts of conversation cafe type of technique. So it's town hall, it's not really the right tool for an OCP
Okay,
I appreciate that because that was the last time that an OCP was actually discussed in my entire residence here at Lions Bay, and it was highly, highly inappropriate and poorly executed. So I like where you're going with this. Thank you.
Okay, any other counselors? Counselor McLaughlin?
My original request that staff bring back its last 2 pages for further discussion. Think it through, got the week to do it, where we are.
Okay, Counselor Broughton, had your hand up?
Yeah, just quickly, municipal advisor identified that our bylaws were drastically out of date, and did not qualify that at all. That they were generally in pretty rough shape, including the building bylaw. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and I hopefully we can pursue the Don Midstone offer and really push on that. I think he owes us a number of things, and I think that we need to, I wouldn't use the word shame, but we would encourage him to follow through in some of the things he has mentioned to us. Both Councillor Abbott and I attended the House Sound Community Forum, and there was a lot of discussion about OCPs at the House Sound Community Forum. And many of the communities in the House Sound are currently in some kind of stage of their own, looking at things, questioning, and it's always a good process, and it should be an ongoing process. But it's not a quick process, I understand.
All right, Mr. Cherkoff, final comments?
No, so,
Hang on for 1 second. Counselor Abbott, I thought we went to you first,
You
but
didn't
go ahead.
actually.
Sorry, okay,
You
go
didn't
ahead.
go to me first.
Apologies.
Okay, so yeah, I'll keep it brief. On the OCP, I agree with Jamie, have your says, have been very, very successful here. And we've got, and whatever we do with these speaking events, that the one that went so badly south at the Glen Eagles was because residents felt that they're getting something sold to them. So just be careful how we do that. And I think we should start with that, per se. And I completely lost my train of thought on the second. So just
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, I will make final comment, then I'll pass it off to Mr. Cherkoff. I think this community deserves to have open discussion. I think that this community is mature enough to be able to get in a room and have discussion, and quite frankly, whichever way the majority of this community decides to go, I would support. So I am always open for that discussion. Town halls don't scare me. Getting people together in a room and talking about things. Okay, Mr. Cherkoff, final comments before we adjourn the meeting?
so, we've gotten through, discussion on the water rate increase, solid waste.
Done. Oh, sorry, I was doing check.
Yeah, so, yeah,
In your mind next time.
we had some discussion and then eventually came down to leave it at 5K. There was Ken to bring it down to 5, Ron to bring it down to 5K surplus. Councillor Abbott, no use of the recycling money, keep it in there because we've been using something else. Councillor Brighton was even on that, and Councillor Cunliffe was what I call it even. So it was basically, can I make that assumption that the current budget for
That is cool.
status quo?
You've got 2 minutes. Mr. Cherkoff.
3 to 2.
Status quo. Wastewater deferred to discussion with staff. There was some more discussion about that. We just want to figure out what's in the reserves there. So we'll bring that back to council for the next meeting to discuss with prior to approval. CapEx deferred and OpEx supplementals deferred to the next meeting for more fulsome discussion after some revisions and meetings with staff.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second, all in favor? Opposed,
Yes.
motion carries.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You